Welcome to the dark side of the silver screen, where the enigmatic, the menacing, and the masterful villains of Indian cinema come to life.
Mogambo. Khushua.
Today, we are diving deep into the roles that have thrilled, chilled, and taught us a thing or two about the complexities of human nature. In Indian art and literature, villains have always played an important role. From the treacherous Ravan and Kans to the deceitful Duryodhan and Dushasan, our culture is ripe with characters meant to be loathed and cast aside. But what truly defines a villain? Chapter 34 of Sage Bharat's Natya Shastra categorizes villains as Adham, an inferior character marked by harshness, criminality, and deceit. Yet, Indian cinema has crafted villains so complex, they often garner more sympathy than the hero. Let's have a look at some of them and see what really goes into making of a villain. The early days of Indian cinema saw the frequent presentation of typical villains such as scheming zamindars, moneylenders, businessmen, ruthless gangsters, and vengeful anti-heroes. These characters were often one-dimensional, easily identifiable as evil, and were there to be defeated by the hero. Independent India had constitutionally abolished the much exploitative and discriminatory zamindari system in 1951. Cinema played its part by maligning the exploitative zamindars in various films. Thakur Harnam Singh in Do Bigha Zameen, Sukhi Lala in Mother India, and many others personified the model zamindar villains. In 1950s India, factors such as widespread poverty, unemployment, and rapid urbanization led to overcrowded cities with limited economic opportunities, creating an environment where gangster villains could emerge. The legacy of British colonial rule left significant social and economic disparities, while political instability and corruption within law enforcement and government agencies allowed organized crime to flourish. K.N. Singh was the epitome of an urban gangster, a suave don. His roles in Marine Drive and Howrah Bridge set the tone for future urban villains. Amid the rise of these negative elements in Indian society, the hero's response changed, giving rise to the anti-hero in the 1950s. This shift reflected disillusionment with Nehruvian economic policies and job crisis among the youth. Films like Avara and Bazi featured characters who broke rules but retained their morality. These anti-heroes often faced arrest, reformation, or death, underscoring the importance of law and order. This was also the time when dissatisfaction with the system led filmmakers to depict the system itself as the villain in movies like Jaagte Raho and Pyasa, showcasing the corruption of society, lawyers, politicians, and bureaucrats. These characters, created by an unjust system, became rebels who, despite breaking the law, garnered public sympathy. After K.N. Singh in the 1960s, it was Ajit in the 1970s who continued the trend of an urban gangster and left a mark in playing such roles with a new level of sophistication, menace, and glamour, popularizing phrases such as Mona Darling. Ranjit's portrayal of a rapist villain in films like Sharmili and Victoria Number 203 left a chilling impact, highlighting the prevailing societal issues of the time. The 1972 Mathura case, which sparked a decade-long battle for justice, rocked the nation and led to significant judicial reforms in India's rape laws. It heightened awareness of women's rights, sparked a new wave of feminism, and led to the rise of organizations supporting rape victims and women's rights advocates. This era also saw villains becoming more flamboyant and larger than life, resulting in iconic characters like Gabbar Singh in Sholay, played by Amjad Khan. During this time, Indian police were battling the dacoits of Chambal in the 1970s, and they were a major law and order concern in the north-central belt of the country. Vinod Khanna before becoming the all-handsome popular star, made his mark as a villain and played a dacoit in Mera Gaon, Mera Desh. Amitabh Bachchan's Vijay from Diwar and Trishul were written in response to the authoritarian handling of power by the then Indira Gandhi government. It was also a time of the Naxalite movement in Bengal. Such characters started blurring the difference between a hero and a villain, which were going to have long-term impact on characterization in the Indian film industry. Larger-than-life villains with unique names like Shakal, Mogambo and Dr. Dang became iconic, reflecting India's unease with foreign influence. Amrish Puri's portrayal of Mogambo was highly dramatized. His costume, as Puri himself described, aimed to embody both regality and the reality of evil. These characters were not only involved in illegal activities, but also harbored ambitions to politically destabilize India. The film writers read their newspapers carefully and capitalized on them very smartly. Shah Rukh Khan's portrayal of obsessive, cynical characters in films like Bazigar, Dar and Anjam marked a departure from the traditional portrayal of villains in Indian cinema. These characters were complex, often driven by personal trauma or obsession, and challenged the audience's perception of heroism and villainy. One does not understand how and why these roles were written, because this is also a time when India was enjoying family-oriented blockbusters like DDLJ and Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. Perhaps this was the first wave of Indian man's incomprehension of the women's liberation and awareness. SRK himself did not go back to playing such characters and became the all-time favorite metrosexual man of the post-liberalized India. While male villains have been in the forefront of the Indian film industry, female villains have been playing their part in Indian cinema since the early years. Before TV's Saas Bahu dramas, cinema featured the detestable stepmothers and mothers-in-law like Lalita Pawar in Saud in Saske and Shashikala in Sargam, Fir Wahi Raat and others. These characters introduced terms like kulta, kamini and highlighted issues in Indian society and challenges women faced in the family inside the house. In Sadak, Sadashiv Amrapurkar's character Maharani was the first transgender villain in Hindi films, challenging a society that still kept this gender under wraps. Portrayal of female villains also emerged in cinema as women battled an unjust society and corrupt system. Seema Biswas's portrayal of Phulan Devi highlighted many issues that contribute to the creation of a villain. But is Phulan Devi a villain or a victim? In the 2000s, female villains were notably represented by Kajol in Gupt, Urmila Matondkar in Ek Hasina Thi, and Priyanka Chopra in Aitraz, each delivering negative roles with panache. The rise of OTT platforms in recent times has led to more nuanced portrayals of villains, reflecting the medium's maturity and its willingness to tackle complex themes and characters. Series like Mirzapur, Sacred Games, Patal Lok, and Ashram have introduced audiences to multi-dimensional villains who are as fascinating as they are terrifying. This shift allows for deeper exploration of characters' motivations and backgrounds, moving away from traditional black and white depictions of good versus evil. Villains are no longer just foils for the heroes, but they are central characters in their own right, driving the narrative and challenging audiences' perceptions of morality and justice. Villains in Indian cinema have evolved from classical archetypes to complex characters, while society has played its part in creating these villains. We can safely conclude that if cinema reflects society, then villains are undoubtedly shaped by it. With the new Bharatiya Samhitas, only time will tell how Indian cinema will portray modern villains. In an era of AI and mechanically generated entities, will we still vilify humans or will we move on to something else? Until then, let's ask ourselves, without a good villain, can we truly appreciate the hero?